Welcome back to English for Grade 11. Previous episodes we talked about writing and we discussed a few grammatical items. In this episode we'll go through a few vocabulary lists and then we go through the writing and the process of writing followed by translation. Let's take a look. First, those are the vocabulary items that will help us and guide us through our writing process. We have the following. So let's start with the picture and we see from there. So we have this picture 2020 years ago. So before that, we had a BCE, what we call as a BCE, which is the before Common Era. For example, pottery was in use by around 5500 BCE, which is 5500 BCE, before Common Era. Now, let's go to the second picture. We have letters here, the alphabets of the Roman language or the Roman alphabet. What we call them characters, or a character is a noun which means a printed or written letter or symbol. So for example, there are 26 characters in the English alphabet and of course 28 in the Arabic alphabet. The next picture we have here is kind of a draw or a picture or a symbol of something. That's a cuneiform. It's a noun. It means denoting or relating the wedge-shaped characters impressed on clay tables. So those are the wedges that are impressed on clay tablets. For example, in 2004, several cuneiform texts written in Babylonian were discovered. So very old texts from different empires. Next one, I just give you a hint in the previous word. We have a picture here of something, a horse maybe, some different theme or part of history, yeah? It's a empire. It means an extensive group of states or countries under a single supreme authority. For example, 100 years ago, Britain had a large empire. Let's go to the next picture here, and we have symbols that are very known and common in different cultures. With the previous cultures, we used to see them inside pyramids, let's say. I'm not gonna say caves, but inside pyramids. It's the hieroglyphics. It's a noun. It means incomprehensible symbols or writing. For example, hieroglyphics are carved into the walls of the temple. Of course, it is found in Egypt, most likely. Next one, we have pen and papers, or maybe clays, tablets, and whatever. You inscribe, it's a verb, to write or carve words or symbols on something, especially as a formal or permanent record. For example, the watch was inscribed with her name, so we can print or carve something into objects, or maybe clay or wood or anything. Next one, we have a table of a group of people sitting, doing something, yeah? They are reading and they are very known, or they know how to use books and they can read and write. So that's a literacy. It's a noun. It means the ability to read and write. For example, many adults have some problems with literacy. Many adults have some problems with literacy. They cannot read and write, of course. Next one, we have, I'm not gonna say the word, I'm trying to give you a way out of it. We have people doing different things. Each person here is doing something that represents something else. It's a pictogram. I'm not gonna say a picture. It's a pictorial symbol for a word or phrase. So each picture here represents something, represents a meaning. So for example, Chinese language is composed of pictograms. So there are pictures that represent or convey meaning of something else. Next one, we have something very efficient. If you do your job well, it is very efficient, yeah? It's practical. It means of or concerned with the actual doing or use of something rather than with theory and ideas. And of course, it's an adjective. For example, I like to be practical about things. I like to be practical about things. We have 3 more words to go through, and we have this picture here. We have a printer, let's say. So when you write something or type something and you're finished with your essay, with your book, with your novel, whatsoever, you want to share it with the world. You publish. That's the verb. It means of an author or company to prepare and issue a book, journal, piece of music, or other work for public sale. So you want to publish your work for public sale. For example, next month they will publish a special feature on computer books. We have two more words and we have this picture here. So that's the picture of weed. It's a tall, slender-leaved plant of the grass family that grows in water or in marshy grounds. For example, growth of the reed can choke out native water plants. And of course, the meaning behind this picture here, or this word with our unit, is because they used it as a pen, most likely. Scribe is the last word here. It means a person who copies out documents, especially one employed to do this before printing was invented. So he used to copy down information to pass it to different people. So, for example, we sat on a bench and the scribe wrote with a goose quill pen. So the one who copies wrote using that pen. So let's go with the writing and the writing process. But before we start, we need some, I'm going to give you some tips that help you and guide you to do a better essay, or to write a better essay. First, you should consider the following, of course, and make sure you read the question carefully. So you need to understand the question that you're going to talk about. Number 2, brainstorm ideas about the topic. I want you to think and to write every possible idea that you have in your mind and to put them in groups. Number 3, now after putting them in groups, I want you to choose the main ideas that you want to talk about. So I divided them into categories or groups, and now I'm going to choose the main ideas that I'm going to use. Next, for each main idea that I just classified, I need 2 supporting details to help me and to support my argument or to support my explanation. Number 5, you will provide examples to explain your supporting details. So supporting details support the main idea, but the examples support the supporting details. Okay? Now, after that, we want to join the sentences together using connecting words to make it look nice and effective for the reader. Number 7, make sure you follow the format of the essay. Make sure you follow the format of the essay. For example, if it's descriptive, do a descriptive essay. Or if it's an argumentative, do an argumentative essay, and so on. You should follow the format of the essay. Last but not least, make sure your essay is cohesive and coherent, that is well connected and understandable. Now, let's start with the outline. Of course, for each essay, we have 2 different things. The outline, which is the plan, and the topic itself. The plan is where we want to see the brainstorming process. So the main ideas, the supporting details, and the introduction, the conclusion, and so on. So the outline is the plan, and without it, you will not be able to gather your thoughts and ideas for your essay. So this is the most important and critical part of the essay. You have to collect your thoughts and ideas. Now we have 3 parts for the outline: the introduction, the body paragraphs, and the conclusion. Okay, so how to write a good introduction? First, in the first paragraph, this is the first thing that people will read. So it has to be great, because that's the most important thing. You want to grab their attention. You want to give them a brief introduction about your topic. You want to guide them throughout your essay. You're going to talk about 1, 2, 3, and they have to know before reading, so they don't get shocked at the end. So we have follow a few elements of the introduction. Number 1 is the hook, to grab the attention of the reader. That's number 1. Number 2 is the thesis statement, which will provide the reader the chance of getting to know where your essay will go through. Okay? And finally is the plan development. All right? So these are the 3 elements of the introduction. Now let's go to the second part, which is the body paragraphs and how to write a good body paragraph. So the body paragraphs are the backbone of your essay. That's the most important thing, with all the details and main ideas. So it has to be strong. So we have in each paragraph we have to write the following. These are the elements of the body paragraph, which is the topic sentence, which is the starting sentence of the paragraph, and then your main ideas that you're going to talk about, and then you support them with supporting ideas, and then you provide examples to proven or strengthen your paragraph. And I think these 4 elements that you're going to do twice for each paragraph, or maybe you can do more. For each paragraph, you have to add and include these elements. Next, we have the conclusion and how to write a good conclusion. And the most important thing, that your conclusion is your final outcome, your finishing. So it has to be as strong as the introduction and the body paragraphs, and to have a strong ending. Okay, so, and it has, of course, elements. So the elements of the conclusion are: restate your thesis statement, so to make sure that you are willing and going through the same direction, and you just make sure that you did the thesis statement that you mentioned in the first paragraph, and then you give a brief summary. You summarize everything in a sentence or 2, and then you conclude by giving your opinion, or you can ask a question, further questions for the reader, or maybe you can do or give them a recommendation about what to do. Okay, so those are the elements of the conclusion. Now let's see a brief a sample of our unit here. We are talking about writing. So we have a question here. Let's read the question together. Writing is a skill used in all languages. We want to plan and write a report about the history of writing, describing the tools and the methods used while writing. So we want to talk about 2 things, the tools and the methods. Those will be our paragraphs, the backbone of our essay. Okay, so we have to add the introduction, then we have the body paragraphs including the tools or describing the tools, and then the methods used while writing. I remember while I was mentioning the tips, I told you to follow the format. So in here it says describing. So this is a descriptive essay. So it says describing, that we want to follow that format. We want to describe. Okay, so let's see, and let's go with the introduction. So the best way to make sure you memorize something is to write it down, whether it is grocery items or your notes to study. Writing is the only source that connects cultures together. This essay will tackle the tools used in the past along with the methods of writing. Okay, so that is our introduction about the writing and the history of writing, of course, with the beginning of the importance of writing. That's our hook, the importance of writing, and then I'm going through the tools and the methods of the history of writing. Let's go briefly for the body paragraphs. And of course, in the previous unit, we talked about how to write a good body paragraph, so you should now do it yourself. But this is just a sample for you to see. And I expect you to write your own body paragraphs and main ideas. So nowadays, people use a pen and piece of paper to write. However, some people may disagree because of different options available, such as typing in a smart device. On the other hand, people used whatever available to write down information, like brushes, walls, and turtle shells. So in the past, they used these items, the brushes, carved in walls, and turtle shells. They inscribed on turtle shells. But nowadays, they just type and even maybe use different technology to help them write down information. Okay, so that's about the tools. I'm just describing the tools. Now let's go with the methods of used while writing. So the writer needs to find a space to write down information. People had to go to that place to read that information. They were drawing pictures on the walls, and of course, each picture convey meaning. Other cultures were scribing special characters instead. So it depends on each character and the language and the form of written form they are using, whether it's a picture, a pictogram, or a draw, or a character. It depends on the culture itself. Now let's pay attention to the conclusion. And now I provided 3 different parts, 3 different conclusions, just to give you a brief about our topic. So to conclude, we write mostly the summary, or we can conclude about our own idea. So this is our ideas about the history of writing, or the methods and tools and techniques of writing. So that's one sample of the conclusion. So writing is one of the oldest and most important ways of communicating between each other. However, writing wasn't always like it is now. This essay described how writing was in the past and compared it to how it is nowadays, which is the printing and typing with the tools that are used in the past. Okay, or we can use this conclusion. In the past, people used to write on walls using symbols to tell stories. Some cultures even wrote on turtle shells. This is because paper wasn't present at that time. They also used feathers and inks. Or we have this final conclusion, which is nowadays people use papers to write on. They also use ballpoint pens more than using ink. The ballpoint pens are very affordable and write in a neat handwriting. So if you're asking me what are the ballpoint pens, we will see in the next episode. Now, let's move on to the translation. When we translate, we need to pay attention to the following. We translate the meaning from one language to another. We don't translate word by word, but we translate the meaning as a whole. So we have to pay attention to the meaning and, of course, to follow the structure of each language. So we read the language in Arabic and we want to follow the structure in English. So let's read the sentences here in Arabic first to understand the meaning and translate them into English. So أحمد، الكتابة أصبحت أحد أهم المهارات في حياتنا اليومية. بدر، هذا صحيح. فمهارة الكتابة تسمح للشخص بالتعبير عن رأيه بشكل أوضح، وهي تستخدم في الوظائف المختلفة بشكل كبير. So we have here some keywords to help us and guide us with the meaning, to understand the meaning. So we have الكتابة and أهم المهارات, that's another keyword, and حياتنا اليومية. So we have 3 keywords with Ahmed's phrase. Badr says we have فمهارة الكتابة, that's another keyword, تسمح بالتعبير عن رأيه أوضح وتستخدم في الوظائف المختلفة. So we have different keywords here. So we want to put them into use and provide them in English, yeah? So let's see how we put them here. And we say we'll have the following. Ahmed, writing has become one of the most important skills in our daily lives. And you have writing, which is الكتابة, and we have one of the most important skills, أهم المهارات, حياة اليومية became our daily lives. Those are the keywords for Ahmed. Badr says, that's right. Writing, which is فمهارة الكتابة, allows, which is تسمح, people to express their ideas clearly. Express their ideas clearly, which is بالتعبير عن رأيه. And used greatly of course represent أوضح in many different jobs, which is في الوظائف المختلفة. تستخدم في الوظائف المختلفة. And this is how we translate from one language to another. Of course, if you take a look at the structure of the phrases in English, we are using the English structure. And if you go back to the Arabic sentences, you see that we are using the Arabic structure, and we used each language and we gave it its own structure, but we kept the same meaning, and that's the most important thing. In this episode, we looked at the new vocabulary that helped us and guided us with the writing, and then we looked at the descriptive essay, of course, with a focus on conclusion paragraphs, and I gave you 3, and then finally we looked at how to tackle the translation. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time.